to all our friends and supporters who are watching. I'm going to ask everyone, please, who's watching, please share this on whatever social media platform you're using. These are historic times. These are dangerous times right now. We're going to be discussing myself and Mayor Jolowitz. We're going to be discussing the horrific Trump Iran deal. Part of this deal, hang on, let me just make sure everything's working here. Just want everything to be on our various platforms that we use. See? Yes. Okay, it's on. Yeah. Part of this deal that President Donald Trump signed at the Evian conference for the G7. He signed it, and that conference in Evian should bring back memories of the conference that occurred, the Evian conference that occurred in 1938, when world leaders got together to discuss what to do about the Jews of Europe. And no one would step up to the plate. No Western country would step up to the plate and say they'll take in Jews from Nazi Germany. And Hitler was smiling as that conference ended, and he said they have legitimized his policy against the Jews. They signed the deal in Evian, and part of the deal gives Iran, the Islamic regime in Iran, gives them $300 billion to finance terror groups throughout the world. There's going to be an increase in anti-Semitism. There's no question about it. Here in Toronto, for instance, the Toronto police, the chief, said that terrorist groups in Canada, and there are terrorist groups in Canada, and they're not being shut down and they're not being deported or expelled. They're in Canada, and they're paying youth. They're subcontracting to youth to carry out terrorist attacks against the Jewish community, shooting into synagogues, shooting at Jews randomly. $300 billion in funding to Iran, and in Canada we have hundreds of IRGC operatives. I'm sure you have the same thing in the United States. And when President Donald Trump goes on about Hamas, even in his discussions, in his various press conferences at the conference, goes on about Hamas, saying that, well, they were raised from birth with guns, so you can't expect them right away to disarm. Poor little Hamasniks. And then he goes on about the Palestinian Authority, who has the pay for slay policy, and they supported the October 7th slaughter of the Jews, 2023. I can go on. There's so much in this that empowers the Islamic regime in Iran and their war against the Jews and their desire to destroy Israel. Mayor, how do you see this?
Not well.
Right.
First of all, let me apologize. We're doing this at a time when the sun is about to set here in 90 minutes. And I don't know what the optics might not be the best as far as the shadows. But nonetheless, the shadows in the Middle East are more concerning. A couple of comments. You used the word deal. Deal isn't really the word that needs to be used right now as far as the operational term. It's an agreement. It's a memorandum of understanding. It's a memorandum of misunderstanding. It's a memorandum of understanding which is supposed to establish the rules that will be negotiated after 60 days of what the negotiations are going to be what they're going to look like. And it's fraught with absolute absurdities, such as Trump has said a maximum of 60 days unless we decide to extend it. Well, if that's the case, tell your lawyers to take out the word maximum. Just say 60 days unless we decide to extend it. The whole thing is just absolutely foolish. But I want to make a comment. And I know you and I do this frequently. These aren't long sessions. So what I'm going to do, at least for the moment, is opt not to break down the 14 points which have been told as part of the memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
Other people have seen it elsewhere. They've heard the analysts. I want to talk rather about the analysts, if I may. I just came back from out of town late last night. I have a lecture that I'm giving tomorrow. I do a radio show on Sunday, and I'm trying to catch up with too many notes to be able to condense into a 5-hour lecture, never mind the 20 minutes that you and I will share, of which I've already spent 3. So forgive me, I'm going to say this. I want to talk about the philosophical underlining of this whole concept that you and I have spoken about. You and I speak off air quite frequently, and we are like-minded because the obvious is obvious to those who aren't blind. And I just want to make a couple of comments, and forgive me as I glance.
Sure.
I just jotted this down a few minutes before you and I went on air, but I want to make reference to it because it's important. This is the philosophical aspect rather than attacking point number 8 in the agreement with the Iranians have promised that they would not pursue. Enough of this nonsense. You and I did the same thing when we discussed the Gaza 20-point peace plan, in which I mocked the very word peace, whatever. So let me begin with this. There are 4 truisms which I just want to sort of connect the dots for. And it comes to understanding the Middle East. I'm speaking about the Middle East. I'm talking about Israel. I'm talking about Israel's relationship with its neighbors and Israel's relationship with the United States, which is now heavily fractured. And the reason I want to do this is because all the other stuff is minutia. It's going to come and it's going to go. It's going to be irrelevant. But what I want to talk about isn't irrelevant. It's what we need to understand. 4 truisms which underscore everything that we talk about in the Middle East and Israel. The first is, and some of these are so simple that people seem to ignore them. First truism is that the first casualty of any or most wars is the truth. It's the first casualty of any war, any conflict. The second is that most experts are not experts. The third one is that most of those people who seem to know more than the others are nonetheless cowards. And you see how, despite the fact that they know the truth, one of the great virtues, there's 8, 10, 12 virtues of man that we've all learned, whatever. None is more important than the virtue of courage. And that's the thing that is often bereft in the discussion of Israel in the Middle East, whatever. And the fourth truism that I want to talk about is that a military threat is not credible if it doesn't serve as a deterrent. Now, taking those 4, if I may make one comment as an example of each of those. The first one, for example, that I gave, the first truism, which is the first casualty of any wars, is the truth. In the case of Israel, Israel and its thing, the Western world and the media, many other people besides the 2 of us have discussed it many times. Quite remarkably, the Western world and the media has actually come to the conclusion that Israel, in this particular conflict that's going on now, is the aggressor. Whereas Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, driven by a genocidal ideology, which calls for the elimination of the Jewish state and the Jewish people, with a threat, an ongoing threat, even now, as they're doing the memorandum, has basically called for the end of Israel. Okay? That is one example of the fact that the truth is a casualty. Israel is the bad guys. The Muslims, the people who butcher their own citizens, are the victims of Israel's aggression. I could throw in another one, but I want to make this quick about the truth as a casualty. We all remember, and I won't go into detail. I think I might have mentioned once before that there were on 11 different circumstances after Israel in the 12-day war destroyed Iran. The United States came in only on the 12th day, dropped its 3 bombs and took their bombers back to Missouri with no threat that they would be shot down because Israel did all the work. Well, Trump 11 different times, 11 different days, said we've obliterated the entire the entire uranium supply.
Right.
Nothing to worry about. Well, that seems to have been forgotten. So
Right.
the truth seems to be a casualty in this particular case. The second truism that most experts are not. The only reason these people are sometimes considered experts is because they happen to have the good fortune of knowing a little more than the audience seems to know, or that the audience seems to accord them the privilege of being more knowledgeable than they are. Most of these so-called experts are political hacks with an agenda, and we know who they are. We know what the BBC and we know what CNN and we know what the New York Times is going to say about Israel in something that's going to happen in 2 days. We know in advance. They're political hacks. The third truism is those who seem to know the truth are cowards. And I'm going to give one example because it was in the news how he changed his mind. Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham, is considered one of the great friends of Israel. Has, by word rather than deed, has spoken so powerfully about Israel. Lindsey Graham, for many years, has basically said he's been a staunchest supporter of Israel verbally. Lindsey Graham has basically said when October 7th happened, and in the weeks after, he said that Israel needs to obliterate, same word, obliterate the enemy, Hamas. They have to destroy them. They cannot be allowed to exist. And then I'm going to give you two examples. The same Lindsey Graham, and he did it again today, when Trump had him switch his mind about being skeptical about the deal, which is what he said. When Trump found out that he said he was skeptical, Trump said, I'm going to have to talk to him, like a principal lecturing a little schoolboy.
Right.
Well, let me tell this to the people. October 7th, we know, happened in 2023. On December 17th, 2023, talking about a short while later, 6 weeks after October 7th, Lindsey Graham, who had called Israel to destroy and eliminate Hamas, came out and said that he supported a two-state solution.
Right.
Okay? On October 31st, 2025, he came out and said, in order to get the Saudis to join the Abraham Accord, Israel must accept a two-state solution, or the two-state illusion, or delusion, as I often call it. It's remarkable that this lover of Israel all of a sudden says that, well, the solution is that Israel has to allow the creation of a terror state on both on its east and the south, a confederated Palestine. This is insanity. Okay, that's the truism that's the third truism that
Mayor, let me just jump in for a sec to add something to that.
Mayor, let me just give the fourth.
I'll just make it very quick. That this so-called two-state solution, the Judea and Samaria, what they call the West Bank, is elevated over our major cities. They would be firing down on our major cities. That's the so-called two-state solution to give the upper hand to those that have sworn our destruction. Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm sorry. The fourth and the last truism is this. I said that a military threat is not credible if it's not a deterrent. Having said that, I'm going to remind people that on April 7th, Donald Trump came out. I'm going to read you the exact line. This is Donald Trump posting on his Truth Social. If Iran did not meet by 8 p.m. today, the deadline to reopen the Straits of Hormuz, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again, end quote. So on April 7th, he said, I'm going to destroy an entire civilization.
Yep.
Today, you criticize Israel for actually attacking a building in order to get a Hezbollah operative that there might have been innocent people who died. It's just, but anyhow, here, let me give you something else. There were 38 times, these are real numbers, 38 times between April 7th and June 15th, 38 times that Trump basically threatened Iran that if you didn't comply with my request to do A, B, or C, we will destroy you. We will destroy you. Well, there's no credible threat. There's no credible threat, and therefore doesn't serve as a deterrent. In the last 36 hours at the G7 conference in France, Trump came out and asked what happens if the Iranians don't hold by this agreement or the deal, whatever. And he said, then I reserve the right to drop bombs on their head. And he said, like a school child, to drop bombs on their head and I can eliminate them in one day. That's what he said. Okay, all of a sudden, beating his chest. I can destroy them in one day. Here's the irony of it all, that the Iranian media, as was true also of the Arab media in other parts of the Middle East, actually mocked his threats as
Mhm.
not credible because they said he's done it so often that and they laughed at it. They mocked it, as they should have, because his threats aren't credible and therefore they don't serve as a deterrent. This is absurd. What Donald Trump has done, and this is sort of a bonus truism. It is true that Donald Trump is the best US president the Jewish state has ever known. No question about it. What makes this betrayal even more of a concern, that if the very best president that the Jewish people have ever known, that the state of Israel has ever known, would actually stab Israel in the back, and this is nothing less than that, okay, then it says quite a lot. A betrayal only comes not from your enemies. A betrayal, by definition, comes from your own, from your friends.
Right.
This is betrayal of everything that we have fought for. It's an embarrassment. And whoever thought that Donald Trump was the best friend of Israel, the operative word here was. It's
Correct.
a tragedy. It's a disaster. And all these people who go on television who were his supporters, when he decided to attack Iran, I'm talking about the people at Fox, for example, good people, people who love Israel. When he decided to attack Iran, yes, we're behind you. When he said we don't have to attack Iran, yes, we're behind you. He changes his mind every other day, and they're behind him because they are cowards, and they're certainly not experts. We are a minority of a minority, and we have to call it out. This is bad news for advocates of a strong Jewish state.
Absolutely. Israel is going to be headed to elections either early October, is what they're saying, or late October. Benjamin Netanyahu, I mean, he's facing a lot of criticism from those who are planning to run against him, and they're blaming him for this disastrous deal or memorandum of understanding or whatever they want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
What should the policy of Israel be, according to you, Mayor, going forward in light of what is going on right now with this disaster?
I've been lecturing for 50 years, 50 plus years. And for 40 of those years, I have suggested that Israel needs to somehow separate itself from the United States, not as an ally. The United States and Israel should remain the strongest allies of any nations in the world. But Israel needs to separate itself as far as its dependence on the United States. And for many of those years, most of those 40 years that I talk about, the United States has not wanted Israel, has actually prevented Israel from distancing itself from the United States because they wanted Israel to be dependent upon the United States so they could still pull the strings. The United States would continue to be the puppeteer and Israel would be the puppet. Now, one could argue that 40 years ago, certainly, 30 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, Israel was completely reliant on the munitions that the United States provided. Never mind that Israel always improved them. And many times, for example, the Iron Dome, people don't realize, wasn't the United States and Israel that created the Iron Dome? Israel created the Iron Dome. The United States helped to pay for it. Well, Israel's GDP, just to throw in an arbitrary date, let's go back 40 years, whatever. Israel's GDP used to be 12.3, 12.6, $13 billion a year, annual. Today, as you know, you've spoken about it often, it's surpassed 600 billion. And depending upon what the war cost will be, it's actually approaching 700 billion. Israel financially, Israel, by the way, Israel, most people misunderstand. Israel has taken no economic aid from the United States since the year 2007. These people think that Israel somehow survives. The amount of money, Israel gets $3.8 billion a year by arrangement from the United States. $3.3 billion by law has to be spent to support the military industrial complex in the United States. And when one wants to put it in perspective, and these so-called experts don't, they're complaining about the fact, well, Israel, why is Israel getting money from the United States? But they have no problem with the $300 billion that you mentioned, sanctions relief and money that's going to be released, that Iran's going to get, in addition to $24 billion to begin this whole process. We're talking about $324 billion. $324 billion is as much money as Israel gets in a year times 82, 83. It's an absurdity for these people to think that the United States, they're going to give the enemies of civilization $300+ billion, and they're going to castigate Israel for not going along with a memorandum and later an agreement that leads to a deal, which is injurious to Israel's very future. This is insanity. It needs to be called out. And to answer your question more directly, Israel needs to become self-sufficient on the military side in order for Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken not to be able to impose an embargo and not be able to fight Hamas, or for Trump to all of a sudden scold Israel like a little child. Israel needs to be self-sufficient. It's the only answer. And the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu understands it, says it. Israel, he said, is immediately going to work towards that end. The reality is it's going to take 10 or 12 years, assuming that the United States doesn't serve as an obstacle, 10 or 12 years before that can happen. It can happen incrementally, but before Israel can do it. One last thing, and the thing that is most disturbing of all, and I have to say it, and it's the thing that upsets me more than anything has ever upset me. This notion that Trump has spoken, and he's now said it, he said it twice in the last 36 hours, he has said it 8 times already, that the United States, if it wasn't for Israel, the United States wouldn't exist. He actually said, if it wasn't for me, first person, singular, me, Israel would not survive 2 hours. There is such contempt in that comment. I voted for Trump 3 times. I would have to vote for him again if he was running again because of the alternative. I get it. But there is such an obscenity in that comment. Listen here, Donald. I know Donald Trump, the first thing he does is listen to this broadcast. So listen here, Donald. Okay, in 1948, 1949, Israel fought a war of independence. It had no arms. It had a few terrible Messerschmitt fighters from Czechoslovakia. No one supported Israel. The American government came out, the State Department told Israel, don't declare yourself as a state, you'll be destroyed. There are too many Arabs, too many Arab armies. Israel did it anyhow. Thank God for Ben Gurion at the time. Israel survived. Israel had 600,000 people at the time, population. 6,000 died. That's 1% of the nation, and they survived. Donald Trump, wherever the hell you were then, the United States wasn't helping Israel. The 6-Day War, 1967, Israel threatened with extinction by its Arab armies, significantly larger as far as its air force and the tank. Israel was alone. The weapons that they had were French, the Mirage. The United States had not given Israel any weapons, contrary to what most experts think. And Israel won in 6 days. Now that the United States is giving Israel, the United States, ceasefire, don't do this, don't go into home. This is absurd. Donald Trump, Israel doesn't exist because of you. In fact, the way that you're operating, it exists despite you. Right. And there's a certain contempt that any lover of Israel has to have. The fact that he says Israel wouldn't exist without me, is that crosses all lines. He has lost his mind.
No, absolutely. Listen, Mayor, thank you very much. We're running out of time. You know what? Just before, final comment, Mayor. I mean, these are historic times right now. I mean, on social media, Jewish leaders are, so-called Jewish leaders are making all kinds of statements. There's a lot of deep concern within Jewish communities worldwide and in Israel. Final comments on this.
Yeah, a final comment about the geostrategic world post World War II. Every nation in the world, and I'm talking about antagonists to America, who basically stood up and spat at America, have actually got the Americans, it's counterintuitive, to actually reach over and try to win them over to it. Israel needs to tell the United States, we love you, we appreciate you, we want to be your closest ally. However, we are going to do what's best for us. Because in 2.5 years, Donald, you are going to be golfing in Florida, and the Arabs are still going to be building the munitions. Israel needs to stand firm and tell the United States, with all due respect, we will fight the fight that we need to fight. We will protect our citizens, especially given that arrogant comment, if it wasn't for me, Israel wouldn't exist. Israel needs to show him how well they can exist and thrive without him, if that's what it takes. I believe that if Israel would choose to separate, the Donald Trump will all of a sudden say, hold on, boys, hold on, boys. Anyhow, that's it. That's my last word.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much, and we'll take it up again. There's going to be lots to discuss going forward in the next few days. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And everyone who's been watching, please share this on whatever social media platform you use. Thank you very much. Shalom.